today to talk about diversity, and I'd like to start by telling you a little story from my own life. About 6 years ago, I did something that was really unthinkable in my social set at the time. I quit my job, I packed up everything I owned, put it in storage, sold my car, canceled my auto insurance, and I took off. Traveled around the world for about 7 months, through Africa and Asia and Australia and New Zealand. And when I came back, I was so jazzed about everything that I had gone out and seen and done and what I'd learned about other cultures that I just didn't want to talk about anything else. I think I drove my friends crazy for a couple months telling stories. And they tried to be polite, but you could tell they didn't really understand what my experience had been all about. And you could tell they kind of thought I was a little bit nuts. And then it came time for me to put the pieces of my life back together as a responsible adult citizen. And so I had to get a job and buy a new car and find a place to live and get some auto insurance. So I started calling insurance brokers. It seemed like I was getting the same cold shoulder from them that I felt I was getting from my friends a little bit. They'd say, well, why have you had this gap in coverage for 7 months? And I'd explain. And they'd ask a couple of skeptical questions and maybe leave a pause or a silence or two and maybe not ever call me back. And I got the feeling that they thought I had been financially irresponsible and they didn't think that I'd be a good prospect. Finally, I called an agent at a company that made me feel completely different. And what an experience that was. This woman listened to me, let me tell stories for 20 or 30 minutes. She seemed to be genuinely fascinated with my travels. Whether she actually was or not, I'll never know, but she was very smart, because by the time she got done with me, I would have signed any policy she put in front of me. So a couple of points to make here about diversity. First of all, diversity goes beyond race and gender. I bet a lot of you thought when you came here today that we were going to talk about all those legally protected categories of difference. But we're going to talk way beyond that. We're going to talk about any kind of difference that matters in some way in the workplace. That woman's talent was to recognize that I had a different set of values and a different outlook about what constituted quality of life. And because she appreciated that, she got my business. Which brings me to my second point. We're not here to talk about diversity as a socially driven or morally driven imperative, something that I think is the right thing to do. We're here to talk about how it makes good business sense and can actually produce competitive advantage for us in the marketplace. And it's also everyone's business. So let's get started and talk about why we're doing this now. If this is the pie representing the entire financial services business in North America today, what percentage do you think your company has of that pie right now? It's actually 12%, if anyone guessed that. So traditionally we talk about how to expand that by making that slice of pie a little bigger, right? We go out and steal business from our competition. What if we were to think about it a little differently? What if we think about making the pie bigger by tapping into new markets that we haven't thought about before? If I were to tell you that 50% of the women in this country have a life insurance policy, and then I asked you to guess what percentage of African American women have a life insurance policy, I bet you would guess something below 50%, wouldn't you? Actually, it's 60% of all African American women in this country have a life insurance policy. So the question is, what other assumptions are we making out there that are limiting our opportunities to go after new business? We're going to talk a lot about that today. We're also going to talk about how the workforce is changing. By the year 2008, 70% of net new entrants to the workforce will be women and people of color. And we want to talk about how to capture that talent, right? Because we want the demographics of our employee population to mirror the demographics of the marketplace that we're serving. And then finally, we also want to talk about creativity and innovation. So if I give you 2 boardrooms, one full of middle-aged white men with similar educations and a similar resume, the other full of people of all different races and nationalities and cultures and backgrounds, where do you think the most creative and innovative ideas are going to come from? Which boardroom? Think about that.